And that takes us beautifully into your good self, Ray Doyle. Did you bring a book?
I do have a copy of it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Can Joe get that out? That'd be great. So from one fascinating story to another, absolutely one fascinating story to another. So, Gray Doyle, yeah, here it is. Here's the book.
Here's the book.
Here's the book. So if you haven't already, you do need to read this. It's wonderful. I have a signed copy at home. I'm a lucky woman. So humanitarianism. So you started your journey. How did you start your journey?
So it started when I was a kid, really. I grew up in the middle of Africa. So born in Zimbabwe, raised in Tanzania, raised on a private safari lodge. I was very blessed. I was born white, male. That made me very privileged in Africa. No matter what I did after that, I was going to succeed. But I, at a very young age, got to see the discrepancies of the haves and the have-nots. And I think the very first time I was a young boy, and as young boys do in the middle of Africa on a 5-star safari lodge during a summer holiday, you swim in 75,000 gallons of fresh water with an ice cold glass of Coke at the edge of your swimming pool. And you wonder why people walking past the front of your building, a woman, for instance, carrying a bucket of water on her head and a laundry in her hand, that she's walked 2 kilometers down to a river to wash her clothes, to fend off crocodiles, hippos, and all the other lovely things like giardia, cholera, anything else that wants to live in the river, bilharzia, and to bring her to walk another 2 kilometers going back home.
And you see her going back,
to going home,
to
this is the water for cooking and drinking, etc., etc. And then has to do it later on during the day to get some more water for, again. So they're going past a couple times a day, and it's 2 kilometers down, 2 kilometers back up again, 40-degree weather. And I'm swimming in 75,000 gallons of fresh water thinking, and it sort of clicked. It's what is wrong with me? What is wrong with us? We have a well at our place, a borehole, that supplies us fresh water. They're on the same river system as us.
Yeah.
Why don't we have it? Why don't they have it?
Yeah.
So speaking to the man who raised me, who was not my father, but I was very fortunate that I was raised by a wonderful man, because my parents were dysfunctional, to say the least. And I was having dinner with him that evening and just said to him, why is this happening? And he said, well, they don't have any water up there. So we have a well, why can't they have a well? They don't have money to put a well in. I said, what's it going to cost to put a well in? And then he said, you finally wake up. And he was letting me, he knew that they needed help, but he was letting me come to terms with that, to be aware of it. And so he hadn't paid me for my work that I was doing on the farm at the time. He hadn't paid, my Christmas money and my birthday money that I usually got. And he said, okay, well, use all of that and we'll put a well in. And so there we did. We went and put a well in.
How old were you?
14.
Oh, nice.
So and that was the beginning of the journey. I carried on sort of going to school. I went to boarding school in Zimbabwe. I ended up, Hugh was a pilot as well. So I grew up flying, very, very privileged. Finally ended up moving to doing some bush flying in the area. Got my commercial license and then went to the States to become a commercial pilot.
Yeah.
Again, an immigrant to the States to become a commercial pilot. Worked there, put myself, started a couple of little small businesses because I couldn't get a job, because I had no American experience. And finally got, all my licenses, got a job, started flying private business jets. Went home on vacation in 1994 and was not aware of, stopped by one of the places that I used to fly for, a company called Northern Air. Like half the pilots were gone. I was talking, where's everybody? Oh, they're in Rwanda doing, because the genocide was happening in Rwanda, they're doing aid work up in Rwanda.
Wow.
So what's going on in Rwanda? I was living in the States. All I heard was about Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yeah.
That was what was going on.
Yeah.
Rwanda didn't make the page in the news there at the time. And I said, so completely oblivious, okay, I'll go help. Anything to fly an airplane. I went up there, and that was the first experience that I saw of
Stay with us.
some really emotional things. I was flying out of Kigali doing the sort of the more lesser reached areas in light aircraft, so the Cessna Caravans, the same one that's on the front of this book, where they couldn't get bigger aircraft in, and we were flying missionaries out, any expats that were living there, teachers, doctors, from the rural areas to get them out. And I recall it was one of the saddest days. I was evacuating a group of missionaries, and the fence of the sort of perimeter fence came down, and people were rushing the fence, rushing the planes to try and get on the plane. And because of their color and because of they lived in the country, I couldn't take them. And this one guy was running alongside of my plane, handing me his kid.
How'd you deal with that? So it's
40 years later, I still can't deal with it.
No.
I let the kid die. I couldn't do anything. I feel that that's what I did. I blame myself a lot for that. So that was the beginning of my aid work.
That changed your life, surely.
Very much.
Yeah.
So the next part of my life was flying business jets in the States, in the Middle East. They paid me stupid amounts of money for doing something I absolutely loved doing. So I used to take anything between, and because I was a contract pilot, I could take whatever time I wanted off. And so I would take anything between a month and sometimes as far as 3 months off and go work in conflict zones, natural disaster areas, refugee camps around the globe. And so wherever there was a crisis, I would just bugger off and go and do it. And then eventually, after flying doctors and medics around all over the place, and coming to mass casualty incidences, and them saying, and they'd be overwhelmed with the work. They'd say, okay, we have 3 people here, a doctor, a nurse, a flight medic, and a pilot. Can you come over here? I'm like, no, I drive. And I think I was like, no, you help. And hold this IV. Great. What's an IV? I was that guy. And so eventually I went back to school and studied for 2 years and became an emergency medical technician so that I could do
be really useful.
Yeah.
Well, be confident about skill.
Well, other than just driving them to the scene.
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and it's taken me to refugee camps. I remember working. I never worked for any of the organizations. I was always a self-sponsored medical aid worker or air ambulance pilot. I'd just go and volunteer, pay my own way to get there. So I had none of the backup of UNHRC, UNDP, Save the Child. I had no backup from anybody. I just went on my own, grabbed a Land Rover and buzzed off into the desert. And so one of the times...
quite a few of you doing that, you said to me on the phone.
There's quite a few people that actually do this.
Where the route you've taken, not exactly the same
No.
being a medic, but they come in and they have this drive to go and
there's quite a few
go and help.
Yeah. So one of the things we were talking about refugees, and you're talking about where they are from here. I get to see them before they come here. And I remember one of the places, I used to work on the outskirts of a place called in Arua. It's in Uganda. Arua means in prison. It was a town called in prison. I don't know why. But anyway, Arua was, well, I can tell you the history behind that, but the story is that they had a refugee camp they called Rhino Refugee Camp. And at the time, there was 150,000 refugees there coming either from the war in the Congo or in Sudan. And they'd have to walk 200-300 kilometers to come to this refugee camp. And so they were always arrested at the borders because they're crossing illegally. And I was the guy running around in a Land Rover giving them water and stuff. I couldn't put them in my Land Rover, else I'd be arrested for aiding and abetting. So I would just give them water, medical attention, and then point them to run a refugee camp and say, okay, you're 20 kilometers away or 6 kilometers away. So I would work on the fringes.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking one day was, how freaking bad was your life that you had to walk 300 kilometers through a desert to come and live in a tent?
Yeah.
So
And I think that's not, excuse me, that's what people don't get.
no,
They don't get.
you know, and they get searched on the way in quite often. You had to, just in case you have weapons and that, and some of them had to carry weapons because they're fending off all sorts of stuff coming through the desert, other humans, adversaries, wildlife. So they have to give up their weapons. And I remember this one man came in there, and it was a really horrible story. He's like, but he was one of thousands that did this. He showed up there in a small bag full of his clothes and a little satchel. In his satchel, he had his birth certificate. He had his school graduation certificate, his wedding photographs, and photographs of his children. That's all he had. And I didn't speak Sudanese, so I didn't know the language. So through the interpreter, I said, well, is his family joining him afterwards? Because sometimes I would go and volunteer at the camp. And is his family coming afterwards? He said, no, that's all he's got left. He ended up having to leave. His family got brutally murdered. And so he lost his wife, his kids, everything, and he just decided to walk away. And his life was reduced to photographs and memories. Yeah. That's all it was. And so we need more compassion, more empathy. Yeah. I was talking to Jo when she was reading the book, and she was editing the book with me, and there's a piece in the book there where, at the same camp, you spend time working at this camp, and sometimes I'm an emergency medical technician. That's not much. It's a guy who can keep you alive until somebody who knows what they're doing shows up, and sometimes I was the highest qualified person there. It's 150,000 people in this camp. And maybe there's 5 or 6 of us that are medically trained. In a city of 150,000 people, you will have 15, 16 hospitals. You'll have 800 doctors, 2,000 nurses. Yeah. And there's 5 of us taking care of 150,000 people. Yeah. And women that have some of the saddest things you see. I remember one day leaving, and there was this woman sitting underneath an acacia tree, and completely malnourished, feeding an equally malnourished child from an empty breast.
Yeah. This is trauma though, isn't it?
Oh, my life has been trauma from this, but it's something I'll always do. I'll do again and
but
again.
It's trauma as a witness, as opposed to...
As a witness, to see this, and we don't see...
That's what you said.
You don't... What you guys went through in Chile, it was the same thing, it is... People don't want to leave their homes. No. You have family, you have roots, you have language, you have grandparents' graves, you have society, you have the church you go to, the neighbor you know. Yeah. It has got to be really the hardest thing in the world just to leave all of that because you have to save your children. So how far would you go to save your child? Would you do the same? This is, I would pose that question to people is, what would it take for you to get up and just have to leave everything you know and love? It's not out of choice. It's a necessity.
I can relate totally to this. I have 3 sons in their 30s. If we had a Taliban situation here, and it meant my sons were going to have to go into, or even if they were younger, going into basically become boy soldiers, I would pack them off on a boat and I'd get them out of the country. Yeah. As a woman, that would be the most important thing for me, and I don't think that's what people understand when they see the news here. Well, the manufactured nonsense.
It's all sound bites. It's what sells newspapers, what sells news. Absolutely. So we're going to give you something to stir up the people so they can keep talking. I saw this on CNN or British News or whatever it is. And they'll just keep talking, and it makes people want to tune in and stuff. Sure. When you talked about child soldier, that was another heartbreaking time. I was working in Goma as an air ambulance pilot. And it's that was one of them, but here's some of the situations that were happening there. It's a very disruptive country, very unstable. And rebels, they were taking over the mines. So they're killing the miners, etc., etc. Now they have nobody to mine the coltan and to get the tantalum so that we can have a nice new cell phone. So what they do is they go and raid a village. So they kill everybody that's no good to them. They take children, boys up to whatever age they are, from 7, 8 years old upwards. They go work in the mines, and the little girls, sometimes as young as 10, are given as child brides to the soldiers. So
they cultivate more.
So yeah, so they've got children. So there's 10-year-olds. Well, it's the whole thing. 10-year-olds being given to. So when you see the village next door to you doing this, it's time for you to leave. Yeah. And so this is what causes. This happens throughout the Lord's Resistance Army. I saw that. I spent time with a child soldier at who was a Joseph Kony in the Lord's Resistance Army. He had been taken as a child. He had to kill his sister because, to prove that, it was, the story's in the book here, but it was a terrible situation. And I met this kid and I spent time with him. And this is what, these unstable places of the world, and sometimes it's instability not only caused by them. Your country was not caused, Chile was not caused by the Chilean government. Allende was a fantastic leader. But because another country didn't like him, Victor Pinochet was propped up in the coup in September 11th, 1973. And it was awful. And so that leads to, sometimes it's famine, war, sometimes outside influences.
Unstable leaders.
World leaders outside your country. Well, Nixon and Kissinger was the problem in Chile and the CIA. And so it is, and so these are things that cause the problems. Is that when the problems arrive, the only difference between them and us is catastrophe hit them first. Because if catastrophe hit us here, we'd be them.
Yeah, totally.
This is,
and that's what people can remove themselves from, because they don't understand it and they don't hear from people who have actually been through this. They hear sound bites, as you say, to sell newspapers from greedy tycoons who really, really should know better and have some sort of humanitarian spirit.
We need more compassion and more humanity in this world, and a little bit of understanding. People don't want to be immigrants. I mean, you go to school, and when we all went to school at some point, I hope. And when they say, the teacher says, "What would you like to grow up to be?" I've never ever heard anyone say a migrant, an immigrant, a displaced person. I hear doctor, lawyer, all these sort of things. And immigrants are great for communities. I mean, America itself, 12 million people came through Ellis Island. 12 million immigrants went to the United States through Ellis Island, and 40% of Americans could trace their heritage back to immigrants.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that's why it's important to do these podcasts, which are community led, because it's important. We don't have spaces to tell our stories. The media is controlled, and they often give the spaces to the loud minority, because when we tell our stories,
and they're scared, that minority are frightened. They're frightened.
But when we tell our stories, what we actually are talking about is how amazing the world is, and how many people are standing up to support refugees, to welcome, but they're not allowed in the media. We don't tell those stories. We don't tell the stories of the amazing things that are going on.
I was going to say, listening to your story there, I can't imagine anyone who wouldn't be moved by that story. But again, spaces to tell those kind of stories are very rare, like Rosanna says. But hearing that and getting a feeling for that, you begin to sort of you begin to understand why things happen. I think there is a kind of certainly with media, the media we have certainly in the West, it's almost impossible to be able to sort of even tell that kind of story. No one wants to listen to that.
No,
no one wants to hear that.
I think they do, but it gets capped.
Yeah.
I think they really do, and otherwise you wouldn't be a success here, People want this to happen. In their heart, we are humanitarian, but we are conditioned to not be that. And that's so. I think when you see kids playing, they want to play together. It's only when they start being conditioned out of the playing together that becomes an issue. So, but what has always been, I think, the saving grace of good civilization have been the storytellers. You're a great storyteller. You're a great storyteller. So are you. But it's about getting this out now.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said the children playing. They just shot into my head. It was a lovely Bruce Hornsby song, and I don't remember
He's a great storyteller.
Yeah, it was a wonderful thing. He said, "You can't. Hey, little boy, you can't play with other kids do because you don't look like they do." And then the next line was,
"That's just the way it is."
Hell, man, how can you stand to think that way?
Yeah, exactly. But it's another way of storytelling. Music, it's a great storytelling medium. Storytelling, literally, film, art. The arts always cover it, which is why I love here, because you use the arts. You use it really wisely.
I'm actually a terrible storyteller because I'm so emotional about.
No, this is not terrible.
This
is not terrible.
I really struggle with the emotions because, especially that I'm writing my second book, and the second book is my mental journey getting well again, or trying to get well again. I took off on a long motorcycle trip through North America, and I met people from hurricanes, people that have survived hurricanes in New Orleans, and also Cameron, which is further west, that was never ever rebuilt, to Native Americans, to migrants coming through. The big migrants coming through from Central America, coming to the States. I ran into a lot of them in Panama and Nicaragua and stuff. And so this has been a huge emotional journey for me. And I wrote this first book is an ode to aid workers. It's like a big shout out to them for what they did so that they could keep people safe, so they could actually find some, and some of them never ever came back. And the second one is the mental struggle. So I'm very emotional, and I'm really close to my heart.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing, Ray.
This whole thing,
no, it's good because you touch. You can't not have this experience and not have it touch you, and this is what we need more of. So to give, and it's education. It's community. It's sitting around.
It's important to tell your story. It's important to tell it with tears, with everything that you have, because we're humans, and if we didn't cry, well, there would be something really badly wrong with us. So we have to cry, and this is what these safe spaces are for us to be able to tell these stories in our own words, and to cry if that's what we want to cry, and to laugh.
No, I laugh, but I struggle when I because a lot of it for me is that I see. I can still see this man. I can tell you what this is. 1994. I can tell you what he was dressed in and what the kid was dressed in. A child that I was doing, and someone handed me a dead child once in the Philippines, and I didn't realize the child was dead, and I was doing CPR on this child because the body was still warm. That's how good a medic I am. I didn't know it was dead, and that's a bit of the dark humor, and I kept doing this, and I'm staring at this kid, and I couldn't stop doing CPR until a doctor called it, and it was a busy emergency room.
Which happens in ER.
Finally a doctor came and called the time, but I could tell you exactly what she was dressed in, what she looked like, what her mother was like. These are stories, they're not stories. These are memories, and these are things that stay with you for the rest of your life. And yes, I would do it again.
So on that note, this is so what we're going to have to do at some time, we're going to have to unpack both of these wonderful storytellers and bring full session specials. I think we need that for the pair of you. And if it means we fill the Henry Ward Hall with people. Hello, Mike.
You snuck in.
If
I'm here.
if we have to fill that place with people, so that we can share the stories and we get these stories out. When are you going to write a book? Just briefly.
Yes.
I think you're due a book, madam. we need a book. So, Gray Doyle, Meet Me in Zanzibar. This is already out. Where can we find this?
If you go to my website at meetmeinzanzibar.com, it gives you a whole range of places where you can buy it, and you can listen to probably this podcast and the other podcast I did with This Is Actually Happening.
Yeah.
Which is more
You're
of my
becoming
story.
a bit of a podcast star. We're going to have more of this.
I set out to fly airplanes,
You
not
did.
to do podcasts.
No. But
Write
anybody
books.
who does the work that you do, that people like us need to focus on them. So, Meet Me in Zanzibar, your book pending, I think.